Hello everybody, this is Stephen Howson. This is Full Time Devils. This is the Manchester United versus Spurs preview. It's a weirdly big game to be playing midweek. And to talk about it, I am joined by Statman Daddy. How are you doing, son? I am joined by Paul.
Yeah,
How are you doing, son?
good.
I didn't want your opinion. I just wanted to say how you do. It's a rhetorical question. And I'm joined by Adam McKola. How are you going, son? And that's why we're late, because Adam was late. Right, so the big... There's two really big topics that we're going to talk about first. And one is Sanchez. The other going to be Paul Pogba, and after that we're going to get into the starting 11s and what we know about Spurs and all the rest of that sort of stuff. But kick us off, Dave. Was you impressed with Sanchez in his debut?
Yeah,
what do you think he's going to offer us in this game?
It was really good. I thought he had a really good performance in terms of what he did on the ball, his vision, what he was looking for. It was very positive, and I think United have lacked a leader in that final third since maybe the days of Cristiano Ronaldo, someone that's really going to grab the ball and take the game to the opponent. And I think that was a really important thing for Sanchez to have a really good debut against a lesser team, but he still played very well. He had more passes, more touches, created more chances than any other player on the pitch, which is pretty interesting for a left midfielder. You usually expect that'll be in central midfield. It'll be one of your ball players. So Sanchez has already become in the heart of the Manchester United attack, and he's played one game, of course, grabbing that assist, pretty much made the Marcus Rashford goal as well. So for me, it was a fantastic debut and, it was a good start for a player that will instantly make a massive impact at Manchester United.
Paul, where do you see him playing long term? We've obviously got a lot of options on the left-hand side. Right looks a little bit weaker. Number 10 is a possibility, maybe?
I think anyone that doesn't think he's going to play in all three of those positions is missing the one of the absolute key strengths of Sanchez. At some point, we'll probably see him as a false nine as well. He's going to play everywhere across the attack at his time in United. I mean, we talked about this, I think, before the Yeovil game, but the position that kind of looks most logical at the moment, given how much Mourinho seems to love having Mata on the right, I mean, nominally on the right and drifting everyone, and the amount of times him and Sanchez were interchanging passes on the left wing against Yeovil was notable. But Mourinho seems to love having Mata there, so that would mean that Sanchez is either going to play at 10, where, given that's essentially where Mkhitaryan played almost all his games for United, especially latterly, that's hardly a surprise at all, given Mkhitaryan's gone. So I think we're going to see Lingard and Alexis really fighting for that number 10 role. Maybe Sanchez used as backup for the right wing. I mean, I thought that his performance against Yeovil was noteworthy. I mean, he did give the ball away a quarter of the time he had it, but we kind of expect that, and that was a consequence of the ambition of his passing a lot of the time, and also the fact that he's working with new teammates, so you'd kind of expect that. But what's really notable is if you think about, so Pogba wasn't there, and you think about, in Pogba's absence, who have United looked to get the ball to when Pogba hasn't been playing? Who have the deeper lying players looked to get the ball to? It's been Mkhitaryan in particular, who wasn't able to look after it a lot of the time. It's often Martial in Pogba's absence. So having another person there, especially when Pogba's there, because Pogba's always the first person they look for. And in this game, Dave mentioned it was slightly surprising that he got the most touches of anyone. And it was clearly just because every time any deep-lying United player had the ball, they were like, let's get it to Sanchez, in the way they did for Pogba. So when we've got two go-to options, that'll make a big difference to us when they play together.
I think a lot of the reasons why he was looking for him is, one, it was a shiny new toy, and it's as much of a shiny new toy for the players playing with him as it is for us. And also because he was coming back and showing for it a hell of a lot as well, which I thought was really good to see. Adam, against Tottenham, do you think there's anything that we can read into the debut against Yeovil, or was it, it was an inferior opposition that we was expected to win? We turned up, we did exactly what we thought, and nothing to it. Or do you think there's actually something?
He started on the left, didn't he? And I'm assuming Anthony Martial is going to be starting, because you don't leave him out at the weekend if he's not starting in midweek against Spurs. And I do think, like Paul said, we can get used to the idea that Alexis Sanchez is going to be popping up in all sorts of positions. I think it will depend on the opposition themselves. But you look at the likes of who's going to be playing with him on the right if he plays middle. You're looking at Mata and Lingard, and those are two players that can quite easily drift into the middle, play through the centre, and let Sanchez go down the right. So then what you get to start to see is that we're getting an attack that is just can be interchangeable, that can move around. And we had that kind of attack. I know it's one of our most successful periods and you can't really compare, but when we had Rooney, Ronaldo, Tevez, all them, we had that kind of ability in attack that we rarely had. But with Sanchez, I just think it's the extra bit of quality that he gives us, because that bit of world class, that bit of match winning ability that Alexis Sanchez has, that Henrik Mkhitaryan unfortunately didn't have for Manchester United, is going to prove so much of a use to us. And just having a number 7 again, a proper number 7, he reminds me of Carlos Tevez, but like better, in terms of he's taller, he seems stronger, and he has a little bit more to his game. And I'll talk about the things that I didn't know about Sanchez, because everyone knows about Sanchez and what he can do. But the things that I didn't see from him at Arsenal, which you probably learn once you get to watch him week in, week out, he has so much finesse in his passing. And I didn't realise that before, because he seems like this hustle and bustle character. He seems like everything's kind of, blasted, but he has finesse in his final delivery. And I think he's got some very clever passing in him. And I knew that, but I didn't see as much of that when he was playing for Arsenal.
That Arsenal
through
team
sheer hatred
didn't create chances if it didn't come through Ozil and Sanchez working as a 2, which is very interesting that they could be reunited in the summer, I think. Right, someone else who's got some unbelievable passing is Paul Pogba. 6 years ago tomorrow, he's going to be the anniversary of his Premier League debut for Manchester United. At that time, I've just literally watched the whole cameo that he made coming off the bench against Stoke in 2012. Actually, he didn't look any different to what he looks now, to be honest. He was showing flashes of skill, he was showing flashes of flair, he was all those passes that we see every week at Manchester United. Dave, what do you think the next 6 years are going to hold for Paul Pogba?
I think it's going to be very, very interesting for Man United fans to see Paul Pogba move from maybe this attacking player to a little bit more deeper and start controlling games. And that's what I'm kind of excited for, the Paul Pogba that sits in maybe the Paul Scholes role and pops the passes to the left, pops it to the right, keeps it moving, gets the attacking players involved, the likes of Rashford, Martial. They're going to be around for the entirety of Paul Pogba's career at Manchester United, and it's very, very exciting. I'm liking him at the moment in a three-man midfield. I think that's where you get the best out of Pogba. We all know that, the space that he can get into, the freedom in movement, but more importantly in the defensive sense, in a 2 sometimes he does press where there isn't the cover. You think of the Juve days, he played in a three-man midfield there. He always had a defensive midfielder behind him so he could go out and shuttle. And I think with him in this system now where he's in a three-man midfield for Manchester United, it kind of means that he's not caught out in a positional sense when United get counter-attacked on. And again, I think that's going to be vitally important for United, but it's just going to be an exciting time. signing the best young central midfielder in world football for a massive fee at the time now looks like a bargain. It's just exciting. That's all it's going to be for Paul Pogba, to see him evolve, see him become something more, see him become complete. I think adding the defensive side to his game, adding that relaxed maybe playmaking of someone like Pirlo who he played with before, it's just going to be, I can't wait in a way. I'd love to just see those 6 years right now, but again, now we get 6 years to enjoy it.
Paul, where do you rank him in terms of like the midfielders around the world? Because he was in that World 11 before he came to United, and he's statistically outperformed what he did at Juventus twice now at United.
I hate that question. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where football is a team game. All that matters is what he brings to the team.
We have to rank them, Paul. Playing. That's what we have to do.
No, there's 2 things I want to say. 1, we don't have to rank them. And 2, in the interest of making sure that we're not spreading fake news, Carlos Tevez is actually 4 centimetres taller than Alexis Sanchez.
Is he?
I better check.
Mark, are you mad? Like, seriously?
Is he? No
Sanchez
way.
Teeny
you know
tiny.
what? I know Sanchez is short, but he just seems, when you look at him, he seems taller. Sorry.
He's got a lot of presence, that's for sure.
Fuck Tevez.
Paul Pogba, though, is a very tall man. And actually, you talked about the press there, Dave. It's really interesting. Pogba in the press is fascinating because he can intercept balls. Talk about ranking. No one else in world football can intercept because he's just got that range. And he's so flexible with it, too. But his greatest strengths are, he has this remarkable physicality. But his greatest strengths are clearly his phenomenal level of talent. And it's, Mac, you talked about the 07-08 team, and this is clearly the most talented assembly of United players we've had since then. The fact that you've got Sanchez, Pogba, Martial, De Gea, all in the same team. And then the kind of next tier down is superb too. You know, Rashford, it was beautiful to see Rashford looking like really sharp and confident again against Yeovil. And I think Pogba, hopefully, the thing about the next 6 years is I just hope it's 6 years at United, because he clearly wanted to come back. And that is clearly an emotional decision. You can see it when he plays. You can see that he has this kind of care for the club and relationships that go back a long way at the club, talking about his debut 6 years ago. You know, that connection with Lingard. Even when you saw him come back and like talking to people in the canteen and stuff, there's clearly that family feel. But he's a Mino Raiola client, and generally speaking, high-profile Mino Raiola clients don't build their careers at one club. So my honest answer to the question of like what will we see for the next 6 years is a couple of years at United and a move to Real Madrid. Now I really hope that doesn't happen, because if Paul Pogba has a lifetime United career, we could win anything in that time.
Just made me really sad then, Paul.
Sorry.
Really, really sad.
We say it now, it might not happen. We kept saying it about the hair, didn't we?
Mm.
That still might happen.
We're better than Real Madrid anyway. Who cares if they won back-to-back Champions League? We are Europa League champions of the world.
Yes.
Adam, Paul Pogba. And it just mint having
Amazing.
a player of that sort of ability. I actually do, as much as it frustrates me, I enjoy the rest of the league thinking he's garbage. No, it frustrates me, and
They don't
I
think
like
he's
it
garbage,
at the same
though.
time.
That's the thing. They might tell you he's garbage. They don't deep down there. Everyone knows Paul Bill Pogba is the man, and that's why everyone has this little bit of hatred for him, because he knows he's the man. And when people know they're the man and then they are the man, people don't like you being the man. So, yeah, he's the man.
But he's also like a nice man.
Yeah,
he's not like the man as in like putting everyone else down and stuff. He's pretty respectful, pretty friendly, all that kind of stuff.
Well raised,
clean living.
and then he's a
you don't see him going out. When was the most negativity you see surrounding Pogba is his haircuts and the fact that he dances, which basically means he enjoys himself. Like in the age of like the scandals that we've seen with some footballers and the things that have been going on with some footballers, and I'm so happy that we've got a team of just the professionals that we've got, and Paul Pogba is the epitome of that. Absolutely supremely talented, absolutely dedicated to his cause, and hated for it. And then you get people who
Sanchez is going to love being around people like Pogba as well. That's why he's come to Manchester United, because what you're going to get at Manchester United is players like Paul Pogba that are driven, that are, yes, they might have a laugh and a joke and do a stupid dance when they score a goal or have a little fun on Snapchat. But you look at Paul Pogba, you look at even Romelu Lukaku, you look at some of the players at Manchester United, they are driven to win trophies. Mm-hmm. They have come to Manchester United to win trophies. And I think what Alexis Sanchez is added into that with the likes of Paul Pogba, Pogba can afford to wait. He can afford to let Jose build a team and then, bear the fruits of that in a few years. Alexis Sanchez can't. He needs us to start winning now. So I think he's going to be perfect for that team, and he's someone that's going to drag shit together when we really need to pull it together and get. I think Sanchez is the perfect. I don't think he's our best player or anything like that. He's potentially is, but I think he's the one that could just sew everything together. It's really exciting signing.
There's the only kind of cold water, the slight cold water I'd pour on that is just he was at Arsenal for a long time. So the kind of and they won trophies in that time. They won the FA Cup a couple of times, which is one of the few things you can win in a season. So it does have a decent degree of value. But the kind of the notion that his drive will guarantee to kick on to the rest of the team. We've still seen Arsenal not have that winning drive, even with Sanchez in the team. But of course, Mourinho is a very different proposition to Wenger.
The Arsenal team is also a very different proposition to United's. And I think if you want to explain what he did, I think the things that he did with Chile probably a bit more pertinent, because that Chile team is nowhere near the level of Brazil or Argentina, but they're winning Copa America. We have got some comments, but before we get to the comments, I have to bring your attention to this up here, and that is our current sub count. We are going for 500k, but more than that, we're trying to overtake the Football Republic, right? That's what we're trying to do. You guys can help us. Hit the subscribe button, then the little bell next to it. Everything. Get it all on. All notifications, the lot. Every time we upload a video, you'll get it, because YouTube's being a bit weird at the moment and not letting everybody know when we upload a video. Here's the comments.
Yeah, but if Logan Paul goes to a bloody forest, starts taking videos of stupid things, that's all right. Shall we do that instead?
No.
I mean, I'd like to see you go to a forest and take videos of stuff, to be honest, Adam. Like...
Not those kind of... Yeah, I'll do that.
Right, shut up. I've got comments from the esteemed viewers. Sanchez will assist Lukaku when pressing upfield. We need that aspect to our attack, says Bobs. Santa was here, says, what are you drinking there, Stat Daddy?
A cup of coffee.
Cup of coffee. For coffee. Jin Xiang NG says, 4-3-3, bro. Thomas Berryman says Rashford and Lingard will be benched, sadly. I do think that's very likely. We're going to get into the starting 11s in just a second. Sir Cam17 says our frequent Wembley goal scorer will probably score again. I don't think he's going to play, but we'll get into that again in a second. Daniel Festitov says Statman is bossing, typing while speaking without breathing. Wow. Impressive.
Uses his penis as a hand.
Wow, that's right, upset me.
Just don't shake it, you'll be all right.
Right. Adam, you're second behind John Shin. Just 5 points over. Dave, you're in third.
What?
Where's Paul? All the way down on 22 points. Damn.
I've only done 2 previews. 22 points isn't bad.
Hang on, are you saying you've got 11 out of 11 twice? I don't think you've done 2
No,
previews.
that is in fact
can we have a
fake
check
news.
Of that, please? Thank you. Not buying that. Absolute garbage. Right, Dave, let's start with you, our kid. Let's go with your formation and your starting 11 for the game against Spurs, please.
So we're going to go 4-3-3. I think that's kind of looking good for Manchester United, but Mourinho may switch back to the 4-2-3-1 and match Spurs man for man. He does like to do that in these bigger games. You know, his midfield going up against the opponent's midfield. But anyway, on to my team, De Gea in goal.
We have a back three against Spurs last time around, didn't we?
Yeah, but that's because Spurs were playing a back three. Spurs have reverted to the 4-2-3-1 in recent weeks because Alderweireld is injured. And it looks quite good. They've been playing well at home. Son especially 5-5, but we'll talk about him a little bit later on. In terms of my team, obviously De Gea in goal, Valencia, Smalling, Jones, Shaw. I think that's the sort of back four Mourinho's liking at the moment. Obviously, Ashley Young, I'd like to see him in there, but this is where you need more of a defender than an attacker. That's why Luke Shaw gets a nod over Ashley Young. Matic in defensive midfield and Lingard and Paul Pogba. I think that'd be quite fluid like the Arsenal game away where they were interchanging positions. Jess Lingard spent a period of that game pressing and being aggressive. And that's kind of like what I'd like to see in that sort of aspect. And then the front three of Sanchez, Lukaku and Anthony Martial. I don't know whether Sanchez will play on the left, will play on the right. I'd rather see him play on the right. If you look at Spurs, where their weakness is, it's on that left-hand side on the counter-attack. It's where Sanchez could really get at them on the break and combine with Lukaku and Martial. I think you might need someone a little bit more defensive. So it's going to be quite interesting for United, but that's my lineup.
I like it. I would love to think Lingard's going to get another shot at Wembley, but I'm not sure. Paul, give us your starting 11, please.
Two differences to Dave's. So I'll just talk about why I've picked those players. I mean, I've gone with a 4-3-3 as well. I went for Herrera over Lingard for a couple of reasons in a 4-3-3. First of all, I think if Lingard does play, we're more likely to see more of a 4-2-3-1 with Lingard playing as a kind of 10. The reason I went for Young over Shaw at fullback is just because I think that Young is currently Mourinho's first pick. He was rested against Yeovil. He played as soon as he came back to fitness against Burnley. I want to say Burnley. And while Spurs did play a back three against Newport, they have absolutely gone back to the 4-2-3-1, and I don't think that they played Juan Foyth as part of the central defensive three against Newport, and there's almost no way I would imagine that he'll play. So I think, yeah, it'll be 4-3-3, and I think that Mourinho, Herrera played really well against Derby and really well against Yeovil, and we haven't been able to say Herrera played really well hardly at all this season, and you could easily point to the quality of opposition, but I think it's mostly about confidence, and maybe we're entering Herrera season. So I think given given that we're probably going to play terribly because this is us away against the top 6 team under Mourinho, there's a very big likelihood that we're going to play terribly. I think that he's likely to err on the side of defensive where in pretty much all his different selections.
Don't you think this is a massive opportunity for Manchester United and Mourinho especially to shut up a lot of the detractors about our form at other top 6 clubs?
So Jose doesn't deal with individual games like that, though, does he?
Yeah, what about every other opportunity in the whole time he's been managing United?
I think that's skewed because we've thrown the league and had 3 of those games at the end of last season. So
Anfield earlier this season wasn't skewed. Liverpool were in absolutely terrible form.
Great result.
Liverpool were in dire form in that game.
Yeah, but they beat Spurs the week after, like 4-1 when they gave them space. Simple. You can't give Liverpool
space. And they beat City at home as well. I think a draw at Anfield was still a good result.
Great result.
We played
a good result, but the performance wasn't. The tactics weren't. That's what Paul's saying. We approached it wrong. If you approach it right and get a draw, that's not bad.
We surrendered our strengths to. We basically matched our weaknesses against their strengths by playing defensively in that game instead of matching our strengths against their weaknesses. It was cowardly management. It's
cowardly.
It's the worst thing about Mourinho. Like, I like Mourinho managing United. I think he's the man that we have to have in charge to remove the burden that our players have been carrying in the post-Ferguson era. Mourinho won't care that it's the post-Ferguson era. Mourinho only cares that it's the Mourinho era. But the idea that he is not handling games away from home in particular against big sides, even at home against big sides, poorly, I think just doesn't stack up to the facts. Now, hopefully, we'll go and smash Spurs 4-0 and the facts will change.
Haven't only City beat
Arsenal 3-1
Yeah, City are the only team that beat us at home on the
Dave, beautiful game. The last away game against the top 6, mate. Mourinho has cracked it.
So, first of all, we should be talking about a top 5 because Arsenal are terrible. But second of all, you're a numbers man, Dave.
I'll give you the numbers.
Statman.
3 goals to 1, mate. It was a great win. Paul Pogba 2 assists. He even got sent off and we still won, Paul. That's how good a performance it was.
I hear what Paul's saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Paul, but I also think that the numbers were skewed on those last 3, admittedly. The 2 games that he's played at Anfield have been awful, but we haven't lost either of them. And I think that's worth noting. And the only team that has beat us at home has been Manchester City. So I think that in the process of building the team that he's building, if we'd have had Sanchez a little bit longer, I would have been very confident of going there and picking up the 3 points. I am confident, just not very confident, of going there and picking up the 3 points. Because I think what we've got is we've got the measure of Spurs. We've had the measure of Spurs under Mourinho for the entire time, excluding the away game at the end of last season when we played a bunch of kids. And I think
Wayne Rooney and Michael Carrick. Well done, Steve. Good analysis again, pal.
Yeah, but who else played?
Axel.
Yeah, but those 2 of our oldest players, not a bunch of kids.
Well, you know what I'm saying. All right, okay. It was a heavily rotated side. You know what I'm saying.
Thank you. Correct.
Adam, in the middle of all that melee, do you want to give us your starting 11, please, Flower?
I think I went with a 4-2-3-1. 1 sec. Let me find it. David De Gea, Valencia, Smalling, Jones, and Luke Shaw. I have a bad feeling that what Paul said is right, and Ashley Young's gone to number 1 choice left back. But 1 sec. Let me plug the laptop in before I shut off. Ooh.
While Adam's doing that, I'm not sure that Young still is.
It's sorted. But yeah, Ashley Young shouldn't be first choice left back. Shouldn't be. No.
I don't think he's going to play though.
But he did say, when he picked Ashley Young for Burnley, he said, I want a more attacking fullback. Does that mean he thinks Luke Shaw's better defensively?
Yeah.
Or was he just saying things to say things and have an excuse to put Ashley Young back in?
Agenda?
I'll see.
Valencia, Smalling, Jones, Shaw. Pogba, Matic. I've gone with Lingard in the middle. Sanchez on the right. Martial on the left. Probably Lukaku up top. But as I said, everyone's going to move around and that.
I wouldn't be shocked to see Mata in the final third on the right and Sanchez in the middle, which would mean dropping Jesse Lingard. And the form he's in, I can see an argument being made for starting Jesse Lingard. I can see, obviously, Sanchez is going to play. There's no way he's not going to start. Marshall's definitely going to start, having been rested last week.
Jesse didn't start against
definitely
Yeovil,
going to
did he?
start. So I think there's a conundrum up there for him now at the moment. And the 4-3-3 is my favoured formation. I don't think we're going to play it against Spurs. I think it'll probably be 4-2-3-1. Right, talk to me about Spurs then. Adam, what do we need to be looking out for? Hurricane FC.
They're all right, innit? They're a very good side, to be fair. I think if Christian Eriksen plays, if Harry Kane plays, I think Christian Eriksen was rested for their trip to Newport. I think they'll obviously have those threats. I think Dele Alli is going through a quiet bit of form at the moment, but he's still a threat as well. But I think you look at Harry Kane, who's got 30 goals in, I think, 30 games this season. Is an absolute phenomenal striker, and you just got to take your hat off to him, innit? His absolute quality. He should join a big club now.
Paul, Spurs?
I like that. That was an excellent line. Yeah, I mean, their very obvious strengths are their attacking four, even though, like Max said, Ali's having an indifferent season. But Eriksen is a superb player, and it's lovely to see Son Heung-min play so well, because he's a fine player and clearly able to cut it at a high level in the Premier League, so that's good. And Harry Kane doesn't need any further discussion, really. But they've got strengths elsewhere too. I mean, Lloris is nowhere near the keeper that De Gea is, and it's always nice when people try and claim that he is. It's talk about not wanting to rank people. I'm going to rank those two, and it's like De Gea and then somewhere down there Lloris, who's fine, but you know, come on, let's be serious. And their back four has coped well with the absence of Alderweireld generally, and their midfield provides a very solid platform for their strikers. Now, Dave said earlier that I think it was Dave that said Mourinho's had Pochettino's number.
Howson.
Oh, was it? Sorry, Steve. My apologies. But yeah, that is true. But they've done it by stifling. That's been the way we've played against Spurs. And yeah, fine. Like if you don't care about that, that's fine. Maybe that'll be effective again. I think it's going to be much harder to stifle Spurs at home at Wembley. And what we're really relying on here is whether he starts the game or comes off the bench. The fact that this game is being played at the Jesse Lingard National Stadium is probably to our advantage. But no, Spurs are a fine team. Although, you know, they're top of the form league, but they're in the Premier League, but they're actually in a little bumpy patch. They've drawn, I think, 3 games. They've drawn, I think, 2 games in the league and that game against Newport, although it's obviously a kind of different side against Newport. But, you know, the draw at home against West Ham, you know, I think maybe Mourinho will take a lead from Moyes and play that very similar style of the absolute ridiculous bus park fest that Moyes conjured up at Wembley.
I think if he watches what Newport did against them, he'll think that he can do quite similar, actually, because what they did was they played quite direct football against them, and Spurs struggled coping with it, in all honesty. And you'd expect that United, with our talent, can play direct football, and if they're struggling to deal with it, they'll really struggle to deal with it with United. Dave, Spurs,
that's
what we're looking for?
helped as well, because we've not won in 5 games at White Hart Lane. Drew a few of them, not lost all of them, but we've lost a fair few games, and I think Wembley helps with it being a bigger pitch and all that stuff. The crowd isn't really on you. Like Spurs at White Hart Lane, when they get the crowd on them, it used to be a good side. I think at Wembley they find it more difficult to do that. Teams find it easier to play. I think when the players go there, they're going to feel like it's not a Premier League game. So that kind of, I've got a good feeling for this match. Like they say, it's on Tottenham, innit?
Dave, go then. Spurs, what we're looking out for?
I think there's a few things. I think that dealing with Dembele deep in midfield is a big thing. And what Paul was talking about, Ander Herrera, I don't think he'll play Ander Herrera. I think he will play Jesse Lingard there instead. But I'd like to see Ander Herrera, just because you want to get in Dembele's face. He's quite susceptible to pressure when you come in at him. When he's receiving, the ball to his feet, he's not very good at checking his angles. So that's some way you can get at him, and then nicking the ball high and counter-attacking down the flanks. It's simple. Against possession-based teams, that's what you want to do. So he's a guy there that maybe Ander Herrera or Jesse Lingard or even Alexis Sanchez could be an interesting one if he does play centrally as a number 10. Could be the guy that's going to be harrowing the Spurs man deep in midfield. The other thing that I watched the Everton game back. So Paul, you were some more fake news on Full Time Devils. Everton against Spurs, they won 4-0 Spurs. That was the last home game. one of the things that it kept on doing was collapsing the Everton back three to the left-hand side, which was massive space for the right fullback. That day it was Aurier. Aurier's out potentially with a knock this against Man United, but it will be Kieran Trippier. What happens is Harry Kane draws one of the centre-halves out. It becomes a back three, then it collapses narrow on the left, and then Spurs will switch the play. That's something United need to be dealing with. So whether it's playing this three-man midfield and allowing one of those guys to shuttle over, but maybe being a bit more disciplined. Harry Kane loves to drop off. Let him drop off. As soon as he drops off into midfield, he needs to be passed on to someone like Nemanja Matic to pick him up. And it's as simple as that if United... The big thing with Spurs is their movement. That's where they're so good. The Eriksen coming inside, Dele Alli making forward runs, Kane coming back, and of course Son making the pitch big and wide. And it's not being pulled apart and being disciplined. And that's why Mourinho has got the beating of Pochettino at the moment, because both of the games you can think of, the United 1-0 Mkhitaryan, and of course the Martial at home, United was very, very structurally sound and they weren't moved about. And that is the biggest thing for United. It's to keep their formation and keep their shape.
Yeah, and I think we attacked the channels very well as well in both of those games.
And direct football yielded results. That what's a better example of direct football than that Martial goal? It was perfect. It was, long ball football as an art form rather than as a kind of reductive clodhopper. It was a lovely pass from De Gea to Lukaku and an amazing headed through ball from Lukaku to Martial.
So I was watching that back, and that's really interesting because Alderweireld doesn't engage Lukaku and he's given a free header. But then watching that Everton game as well, you see Sanchez got caught out quite a few times by Howson, the new signing for Everton, when they just went direct to him. You take the the Europa League World Final last season, same thing Man United did. They targeted Sanchez, and it's where he's a bit weak is when you actually sling the ball up to him and he's got to battle someone. So if United can keep their structure and then like everyone's saying, go direct. Simple as that. If United can go direct, Sanchez,
if only we had an absolute machine of a number 9 that we could throw it up to.
Yeah,
it's also the that kind of makes you a bit more press resistant too, because Spurs obviously press very well as a unit. It's part of what they do, and like Dave says, they shift the shape of their team situationally. It's one of the reasons that I think Pochettino is clearly a very, very fine coach. Maybe he's got some stuff to learn yet, but he's a very interesting manager. But going long makes you press resistant. It's exactly what we did against Ajax, because it negated all of their strengths and played to our relative strengths. I don't think he's going to quite go Fellaini at 10 in this one, but
I wish.
That's the Dave dream.
But we can go direct into the channels and utilise the pace of the players that we've got, which is going to be absolutely fantastic.
I think they're good. They're good on the cover. Vertonghen is very good on the cover. Sanchez is very good on the cover. You don't want to play it into the channels because, again, sweeper keeper. You want to be playing it direct to Lukaku. It's not about getting it wide. It's about hitting the middle. And I think that's going to be so key. Then combining and go to the channels. I don't think the direct balls to the channels is the option. Straight, then break.
Well, I disagree. I think you can go straight behind the full-backs. But anyway.
Well, you're wrong then, mate,
I'm
aren't
going
you?
to come to you, and very quickly, you're going to give me your scores. Dave, what score?
It's going to be a massive 1-0. Jess Lingard, goal.
Paul?
Nah, I can't predict a loss. Can't do it. 1-1 draw. Jesse Lingard to pull back a late equaliser in massive opposition to the way the pattern of the game went.
We're not drawing against these. Adam, what score is it going to be?
2-0 Lingard, Sanchez, Millie rocking at Wembley.
Yes! I don't know what score it's going to be, but it's going to be 3 points from Manchester United. And I'm expecting that it'll change nothing in terms of the press reactions to Manchester United, because that's not a part of the narrative, but it should do. 3 points from Manchester United. You guys let us know what you think your score prediction is going to be in the description and the comments and all that caper below. Give us your starting 11. Make sure to click this up here. No, don't click up here. That's just telling you what it is. Subscribe if you haven't already. And what? What do you want?
I like trains.
Thanks for watching. See you later.